Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Price, and today I'm going to talk to you about my career field, which is government communications and digital branding. First off, I just want to thank Chris Collins, the founder of iSocial Mentor, for this opportunity to speak with you and to answer your questions. I think it's an incredible platform that allows students from all over the United States, all over the world, really, no matter where you're from, whether it's an urban or a rural community, to be able to connect with a mentor in their area of study. So, thank you, Chris, for the opportunity. I'm going to answer a couple of these questions here. So, number one, growing up, did you always think you would end up in government communications? Actually, no. I have a little bit of a family history. Several people on my dad's side of the family have held office. So, I think it's something that I, in a way, ran away from. I've always been interested in communications. I've always been interested in sociology, which was actually my major in college. I also studied public policy and public administration. So, government communications was not something that was really on my radar. I worked for the private sector in marketing and public relations, but as I began to get more active in politics, I decided that I thought this would be a good transition for me. And apparently, my dad was not surprised. He kind of always knew that it was something that I would get into. So I hope that answers your question. Number two, have you received mentorship in your career? If so, who and what value has that mentorship provided you in life? I have an incredible mentor and friend. He's also my former boss. His name is Christopher Massengill. He is the former federal co-chair of the Delta Regional Authority, which is the agency that I currently work for. He was appointed by President Obama in 2010 and confirmed by the Senate. Prior to that, he worked with Governor Mike Beebe of Arkansas and Senator Blanche Lincoln as well on different economic development projects all across the state. So he has really been someone that I've looked up to, like I said, not only as a friend, but as a mentor. And he's one thing that I think is a mark of a good leader is that they want to help create other leaders. And I think that he has definitely helped me step more into a leadership role as my career has progressed. So shout out to you, Chris Massengill. You're an awesome guy. Number three, what did you major in during college and how has it benefited you in your career? I spoke a little bit about this earlier. My major was sociology with a criminology concentration, actually. There's a lot of statistics there. There's not a lot you could do with sociology unless you plan on getting a master's and being either a teacher or social worker. But there are a lot of communications courses that go into that. There's a lot of public administration and political science classes that go into that. And that was my minor, public administration. So I would say that it has helped me because in my career in communications, having that background in sociology, knowing how other people think, knowing how to connect with people from different walks of life and put yourself in their shoes has really helped me when I'm crafting my messages to create effective communications. There's an important tenet of sociology. It's called the sociological imagination. And it basically is putting yourself in someone else's shoes, not just wearing their shoes, but thinking, if I were a African American female who grew up in this part of the country during this time, how would I react in different circumstances? Or if I were a Asian male, how would I act in these different situations? So sociology has really, I think it really has helped me and given me a little bit of an edge, really, in the field of communications and digital branding. What was my first job out of college, and how did that transition into your current position? All right, well, I actually worked as a waiter because you got to pay the bills. And then my first real job, I would say, is I worked for the American Taekwondo Association. I was a program and marketing director for them for one of their locations here in Arkansas, and it really did help me because I was able to connect with our clients in the community. We did different demonstrations at schools. I studied Taekwondo myself. I'm a second degree black belt, so I was able to showcase those skills, hone my abilities, work with the community, work with the kids, go to them. And I think that it really has helped me transition to my job now because I talk to a lot of people, I meet a lot of people, and just having that foundation of not being afraid, even as a waiter, not being afraid to go up to people and just talk and find a way to connect with them. Because as a waiter, you have to get that big tip, so you have to know how to connect with your client, which is the same as connecting with your audience. So I worked for the American Taekwondo Association, and then I worked in private practice for different PR and marketing firms, and eventually, met my former boss and mentor, and he needed somebody on his team at the Delta Regional Authority, and one thing led to the other, and here I am. Prerequisites necessary to work for a federal agency. Well, first, You have to have a college degree. Well, depending on what it is you want to do, preferably a college degree or a master's degree. Um, you also have to be able to talk to people, connect with people, speak to people from different walks of life. And I would say, and this kind of ties into the digital branding and the fashion stuff that I do, but you have to look the part. There's a certain perception if you work for the government or for a federal agency that you almost have to look like an FBI agent. So every day I have a starched iron shirt, suit, tie, got my little lapel pin here, repping Arkansas. So you have to look the part. You have to be ready to go at a moment's notice. When I used to travel around with my boss, one thing that he really liked in, Montgomery, Alabama, or Vicksburg, Mississippi, or New Orleans, but when it's time to get down to the hotel lobby 7 in the morning to go to a speaking engagement or a conference, you have to be ready to go. You have to be well dressed, well put together, presentable, because you never know, you might have to go talk to the governor or a senator or a congressman, and you cannot be a liability to the team because you don't look the part. So just being very polished, very polite, respectable, knowing when to talk, when not to talk. I don't know if these are prerequisites as much as just soft skills, but they are very, very important. It's something that in the government they are always looking for. So I hope that answers your question. What do your daily responsibilities include working for a federal agency? Well, I work on the communications team. I am one of two on the communications team. So my counterpart does more of the traditional media. So he's the one that would write the press releases. Of course, I edit those and look through those as well. I'm the one that releases those via our website and other digital channels. So I'm really the digital side of messaging and communications. We work together on talking points. Normally, I would be the one in the field with my boss, so I would be the point person for the media contacts. If we were traveling to another city for a speaking engagement, I would be the one that would call and make sure the media that said they were going to be there would be there, and to meet with them, connect with them at the event, make sure that my boss got the exposure that he needed for himself, for the agency and the projects we were highlighting, and then follow up afterwards to make sure that they got everything they needed. Maybe they needed his bio or a headshot or logo or something like that, whatever I need to provide to them so that they can run their story. Another daily responsibility, I run the website, so whatever copy changes need to be made. I don't work so much with I would say the structure of the website, more the content. So what kind of images are on there? What does the language read like? What is the policy language? I also run the Twitter and the Facebook account. And then also there's all kinds of engagement with stakeholders. I'm in the field a lot, so I give out my business card. So when people have questions about the agency, or if they want to a certain grant, or just want more information about how a grant could apply to their community project, they would reach out to me, and I would kind of help them through those initial conversations, send them to the right page on the website, maybe forward them to a colleague that programs or policy is more their division. They'd be able to better answer their questions. Another part of my day to day activities working for a federal agency is communicating with other federal agencies. So, being able to reach out to them in their offices if we require a quote from any of our governors, U.S. congressmen and women, U.S. senators, or any mayors or anyone within the region that maybe need to be included in an event or a press release. It would be part of my responsibility to reach out to their offices and get the information I need from them and make sure that they have the information they need from us. Next question. What was the process necessary to be elected as an Arkansas delegate for the National Convention? That is a great question. Arkansas has 37 delegates that they send to the Democratic National Convention. So the process is that we have an electorate base. When I ran, it was a little bit over 500 people. Basically, you're just a member of the Democratic Party and you're willing to come to the special convention to vote. So I had that list. A few weeks before I ran. So for a candidate who's running, you have 3 weeks, just 3 weeks to run your campaign. So I actually had a printed piece that I created. It had my photo and a little bit of information about me why I was running. And just a little bit about the platform that I was running on. So I sent that out to everyone on that electorate list. Maybe a week before to make sure that they had my information. And then I attended a special convention and I got to speak in front of the audience. So I'm part of Congressional District 2. They were only electing 3 men and 3 women from Congressional District 2. So two of the men and two of the women were running as Hillary delegates, and the other male and female were running for a Bernie delegate. So I was running for Hillary, and I went up. You have 90 seconds to speak. Afterwards, everyone who ran, you literally get off the stage, line up, and one by one they ask the audience, who do you want to vote for? And then they raise their lanyard. And then we have three or four people that come around and do a count. And from there, that's how you know if you won or not. So I actually lost both of my first elections that morning. But then after lunch, that were statewide. So I was the first one up, and like I said, there was about 500 people there total, and I spoke again, and I won. So it was a great experience. Very difficult to put yourself out there, but I remember the MC for that day. The Master of Ceremonies was Senator Joyce Elliott, someone who I highly respect, and she told me, I asked her, Senator Elliott, do you have any words of wisdom, any advice for me? And she said, keep running. Every time you have the chance to run, every time you have the chance to just 90 seconds, do it, because that's 90 more seconds that the audience is getting to know who you are. So if I didn't speak those two times in the morning, I probably would not have been elected in the afternoon. I had this group of ladies behind me that I remember they told me during the break for lunch, they said, we had already promised our vote to the other candidate, but we really like you, so we are going to make sure we vote for you after lunch. We're going to tell all our friends to vote for you. So Senator Elliott was right. Go up there and just speak every time you have the chance to speak. All right. Next question. Should students do or avoid doing anything in high school or college if they want to be in politics? This is a very, very good question. I think high school, you may have a little bit more leeway because you're a minor at that time. But definitely today, social media, any employer really, government or not, they're going to look up your social media and they're going to see what you're up to. So I would say, of course, avoid being arrested. I would not be photographed with a alcoholic beverage or a cigarette in my hand. If I know there are parties and events like that, and there's wine or there's beer. If they're going to take your photo, put the beer down, put the wine down. I would be careful with a lot of foul language on your Facebook. Basically, I'm going to just say, like, anything you don't want your grandparents to see, don't put it on your Facebook, don't put it on your social media, and you should be fine as far as working in politics. I know the perception is that we have to be squeaky clean. There is a little bit of leeway with that, but for the most part, when in doubt, don't do it. I hope that answers your question. And if you have particulars, you can always email me and I'll tell you specifically. All right, next question. What is something you have learned in life that you wish you knew when you were entering college? That's a good question. Personality, I could tend to be a bit intense, and I like to control situations, or I did. I've learned to let go a little bit. College self, basically to chill out a little. So, like I said, I was very controlling. I wanted everything my way, and then when things didn't turn out my way, which as they seldom do, life lesson, things seldom work out the way you plan. I don't think I was flexible enough to kind of go with the flow. So that's one thing I've learned now is that it's important to have your end goal, but if you may take a little bit of a windy path to get there, that's okay because that's all part of the process, and you're learning things all along the way. And maybe God puts you in a certain situation so that you'll learn something. So God's plan for your life is not your plan for your life. I would tell my college self to do my best in whatever given situation I'm in, but at the end of the day, to trust God's plan for my life. And really, once I would say everything clicked and started falling into place and started falling like dominoes. So trust in God, trust in the process, trust in your own skills, but don't try to control everything, and stop and smell the roses from time to time. How did you become a brand ambassador and social media influencer? Did you reach out or did they contact you? That's a great question, too. So I started my Instagram, I would say 2014, 2015, and it was really just for fun. It was something to do. I saw that people were taking a lot of chest selfies, which they call chesties, wearing their different professional outfits, ties and pocket squares and putting it all together, and it just became something that I was very interested in. So I started doing it and asking people online, what's your opinion of this outfit and what do you think? And I started getting a lot of positive feedback, and then got to bounce ideas off some other guys that I met through Instagram. And actually, which is the first company that I started working as a brand ambassador for, they offer a $28 a month subscription. You get a box full of men's accessories every month. ties, pocket squares, tie bars, sometimes a watch, just different accessories. So I actually started subscribing to their service, and then I would wear the different accessories and take a picture, put it on my Instagram, and tag them. And the more and more followers I started gaining, and the more those posts were reposted, Sprezzabox actually reached out to me, and they said I was doing such a great job already on my own promoting their brand that they would go ahead and waive the subscription fee and bring me on as an ambassador, and gave me a code so that I could discount to all my followers. And so that's how that really started. And then once they reached out to me, different brands started reaching out to me also. And then I began blogging for a regional magazine called Inviting Arkansas Magazine, which is statewide, and writing a blog on their website about men's fashion, different tips, a lot of seasonal things. And from there, I started getting a little bit more attention online. And then Adidas, I've worked with them a little bit. I've worked with Happy Socks. I'm a brand ambassador for them. They periodically send me pairs of socks whenever their new lines come out. A company out of San Francisco called Bows and Ties, with a wide selection of ties and neckwear. They reach out to me and ask me to be a brand ambassador. 217 Lincoln, which is a luxury suiting company based out of Detroit, Michigan, they reached out to me and gave me a couple custom suits, which was awesome. Shout out Jen Forsyth, the CEO and founder of 217 Lincoln. Check them out, 217lincoln.com. A company out of Hong Kong called the Dark Knot. They also sell men's accessory brands. They reached out to me. So now I've got maybe 6, 7 brands that I am representing online through my Instagram, which is at the.hybrid.gent. So please follow me on Instagram. I would love to add you to my list of followers, and hopefully you'll like what you see. So, what perks do you receive as a brand ambassador influencer? I kind of answered this a little bit in the last question. So, basically, I get a lot of free swag. I will tell you, I'm not to the point where I'm really earning a big income off of it. I do, if people are using my code, I can accrue points that can then be redeemed for cash or other things. But for the most part, I get a lot of free stuff. So, I'm getting probably 4 or 5 free ties a month. Socks, pocket squares, where I need like a whole drawer just for pocket squares and a whole drawer just for ties. And I'm not complaining. I feel very, very blessed. I never really thought that when I started my Instagram, they would get to free swag for it. But it's been an awesome ride. I love doing it. And I try to incorporate it into my daily life. This is what I would wear to work. Come home, take a chest selfie, and then I post it on my Instagram. Sometimes if I'm wearing something that's for government work, I'll change the tie or the pocket square, kind of jazz it up a little bit for Instagram. But yeah, I get a lot of free swag, and I love it. If you could collaborate with any fashion designer, who would it be and why? Now, that's an easy question. Tom Ford. I just really love Tom Ford suits. It's just very classic, very well fit, very elegant. So that whole vintage vibe is something that really appeals to me in my personal style. I'm a big fan of classic looks, classic patterns. The shirt I'm wearing today has some micro dots. The tie is a little bit floral. So florals, polka dots, stripes, plaids, like classic patterns, injecting a little bit of modern trends. I also like to play around with colors, so I'm not afraid to wear a bold color, but again, a bold color and a classic pattern. So it's not too crazy, but it does give a little bit extra attention. I'm also a big fan of vintage details. I go to a lot of estate sales and I'll purchase tie bars and lapel pins and cufflinks. And it's a great conversation starter because someone will say, "Where did you get that awesome tie clip?" And I'll say, "Oh, well, I got it at an estate sale and it's vintage. It's from the 1950s. It's something no one else has." And they're usually very inexpensive. So that's a good tip out there for you fellas or you ladies with a special fella in your life. An estate sale is a great place to get a one of a kind classic men's accessory. So I would definitely want to work with Tom Ford if I could. You were named a Little Rock fashion symbol in 2016. Who is someone that inspires your fashion nationally? Anyone locally? So nationally, I definitely love the style of David Gandy. If y'all don't know who he is, he's a British fashion model. Look him up. He's just very, very classic. Again, I really love that classic men's style, that vintage style. I joke sometimes that I should have been born in 1930 because I'd be a young man in the 1950s and then the 1960s. Really, that whole Mad Men style is something that really resonates with me.